Hey guys, Tarkecat here, and today we are joined by Chris Wilson for a very special Baeclast. We'll be covering everything 3.6. So, Chris, thank you very much for coming on. Raiz, what did you think about Synthesis off the bat?
A lot of blue. I very much love the aesthetic, and I've been looking forward to a league such as this one for the longest time. Although the actual gameplay looks interesting too. It's not just about the blue, especially the crafting methods. That's probably the thing that I'm looking forward to the most. Crafting's been really fun lately in PoE.
Chris, has there been a push towards improving crafting methods and giving players more tools recently?
We try very hard with each expansion to add new crafting stuff. This, of course, can be fossils like in Delve, or potentially the new corruption outcomes in Incursion. And with Synthesis, we wanted it to be kind of a first-class citizen, where we were designing the area synthesis alongside crafting options. And we really liked the idea of fiddling around with implicits in a way we hadn't done before. And so this is the design space where players can influence implicits a lot more than before that we're wanting to explore here. And it's quite scary, to be honest.
Yeah, I can imagine. Some of them seem incredibly powerful from what we've seen.
I should stress that the incredibly powerful ones are the rarest ones, right? Like we're showing off the interesting ones, but they're not dropping like candy.
Okay. I thought that might be the case. It's a nice reassurance to hear that, though.
What am I hyped for? I'm hyped for collecting all the puzzle pieces, putting them together and running them. I think that looks really, really cool. The actual synthesis zones themselves. And seeing how that goes. I'm really, really looking forward to seeing how we interact with that system going up, like how it differs from Incursion and Delve, since it does seem like a mix between the two. And then obviously I always love whenever they do anything to skills. So all the caster rework is really exciting and unique. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For me, that's probably what I'm most excited about, actually, is the complete passover of spells. And in particular, I really want to play Divine Ire. It looks really cool.
Very quickly, I think I'm most excited for the spell reworks and the new focus on the new dot aura, especially since I'm a big fan of dot builds.
Well, it definitely differs from previous leagues in the way it plays, and the general experience you get here is that playing through the game, it's a little like Incursion. You find these sub-areas that you play. They're very bite-sized content. You finish them quite quickly. It's not easy necessarily to complete all of them. The difficulty of those areas is proportional to how many connections that piece has. So the 3 and 4 connection ones are quite challenging to do, but of course those pieces are more versatile. So anyway, as you're playing through the campaign and maps, you get your bite-sized synthesis content. And then it's up to you, like with Delve, to what extent you actually, how often you engage with the full memory map stuff, whether you piece the pieces together one at a time and do shorter runs, or whether you try to make some epic chain of them to go for something further away. And we've been having a lot of fun this weekend actually balancing the rate that reward memories spawn relative to the Nexus in terms of how far away they are, what kind of stuff is on them, and getting that to feel really good. And so I expect that we're going to see some interesting strategy between, making short paths to go for the easy ones and much longer paths to go for the hard ones. And it's worth noting that this is relatively new information, but the way we've changed how global mods work means that it really encourages you to build some quite complicated structures, because now when you get a global mod, it affects everything that's connected in one block. It basically propagates outwards and puts that mod on all of those maps. And so the more global mods you can tag, which are now on the reward memories, give you a cumulative set of global mods that affect all of the connected things. So you definitely get rewarded very heavily for going all in and building some incredible structures.
Is there going to be a limited inventory space for the number of puzzle pieces, so to speak, we can collect?
Yes.
To build these long paths?
Yeah, you hold 10 at the moment, and we're still fiddling with that number, but we like 10. It lets you play quite a lot of areas without having to necessarily spend them all, and it gives you more versatility for when you do. But of course, it's very tempting to plug them in one at a time if there's good rewards nearby.
Say that you were leveling a new character and you picked up 10 low puzzle pieces. Would you have to run those before you could then pick up more higher level ones?
So the memory map is a per character thing, not per league. And the reason for this is twofold. Firstly, because it can be. And I say this because it's not like Delve. It's not a 1,000, 2,000 deep thing that you really need to keep your progress on. This is a thing with cycles where you deplete the reward memories and you go for a new one. It can be, within half a day of gameplay, you've basically wiped out the current state. So if you make a new character, you're not missing a lot. You'll just tag a couple of rewards you needed on the last one. But also because the way that the area levels work, we can completely avoid the problem where you've got this super high level board that you can't play on with your low level character by just having a different slate each. And so it's quite intentional that it's per character, and I don't think there are any drawbacks in this case. So I'll be specific about how this works. Okay, so once one is placed, it will sit there happily forever, and it's got a number of charges on it, and they deplete at the point that you enter the area and click on the interactable object, which causes the basically there's like a force field that drops, and that lets you, in case you enter the area by accident and don't want to deplete it, it's that force field thing that lets you choose whether you're actually opening it up to deplete a counter. Now, there's a planning mode. So the planning mode is a lot like what you guys have been asking for the passive tree, which lets you anywhere just place the pieces down like a ghost version of them so you can plan out what your connectivity is. And the way it works is if a piece is planned, then when you get to the appropriate bridge, it will automatically lock that piece in and extend the bridge straight away. So you put the plan in, and as you play, the plan will just get locked in piece by piece. But that's not technically removing them from your inventory. You still have to enter the areas at least once to lock it in. But most of the pieces you place have like 3 to 5 charges, and so you don't have to worry too much about running out of charges, because the reward places you're trying to get to only have 1 charge. And so you do get a bit of leeway, failing areas and that kind of stuff.
So it's the charge system that then allows for more placed pieces than inventory space.
Certainly. So you can go and play you can plan your pieces, which hasn't removed them from the inventory, and then you can go and run these. Each time you enter one, it will lock it in place, and that takes them away from the inventory and onto the board. And they have a number of charges that can be used. And then you can, of course, accumulate more pieces. And in doing so, you could have 25 down at once, potentially, assuming that's the number we keep. I mean, it could be higher, it could be a little bit lower, depending on how it plays.
Yeah. Specifics are probably going to be in flex. It sounds really cool. That allows you to make, like, absolutely massive chains.
The fractured items drop from what we're calling synthesized monsters. Those are the monsters with the special blow effects on them. And so lots of the global mods also increase the drops of synthesized monsters by quite a lot and increase the number of synthesized monsters. So you can kind of double dip on this, where you're getting both more reward monsters that are dropping more fractured items and they drop better. And so it's kind of an n-squared thing with the global mods. And so if you build a big chain of, say, 20 areas, tag 2 global mods in there, then you get quite a lot of bonuses for those areas.
So, just out of interest, as a developer and as a player, what are the things you're most excited for about this new league?
So from a development point of view, I love the fact that we're getting to do cool stuff with implicit mods. And I have really enjoyed interacting with fractured items because, surprisingly, it feels really good to get something while you're leveling through the game that's got like damage or attack speed locked in, and you can just use a few ults in order to get it to be a really good leveling item. Like that's, it saves dozens and dozens of rerolls. So that's a surprisingly nice thing. From a player, I think that the synthesis areas themselves have a lot of tension going on with the decay that follows you. We've gone through so many iterations of the blue wall of death that comes behind you to try to push you through the area. And there's so much tension between fighting the monsters because you want to get fractured items from them. But only monsters in these decaying areas can drop fractured items. So you're having to compete to get as many monsters killed as you can while making it to the stability points without getting hit by the decay. It's very tense.
So what actually happens if you get hit by the wall then?
So this is a huge debate that we have going on internally. We have many developers feeling that it should be incredibly lethal. We have many developers feeling that it should just kick you out. And we're working on a compromise because we don't want people losing hardcore characters. We understand sometimes you take the wrong turn and the wall gets you. But on the other hand, it is, possible to stay ahead of it. So I believe that we do have it dealing damage, but we also have it teleporting you out after a certain distance, like once it gets thick enough.
Okay.
So it's sort of like incursion, but it damages you a bit before kicking you out.
It certainly damages you to stand in there, but it's not meant to be able to kill you. It just discourages you from taking monster damage. Now, we're iterating on this heavily, right? I suspect it's not going to be the instant death wall that chat is spamming, but we do want there to be consequences for getting the decay catching you.
I mean, he said you'd be forgotten, though. Just literal instant death. Go to the Oba's Cursed Trove.
So have you can...
it doesn't send you to standard. It deletes your character.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
get forgotten.
No account left, right? Supporter pack's gone.
So have you, as a hardcore player, have you balanced the time it takes to kick you out with the logout timer?
I'm thankfully not personally working on balancing that. It's an unenviable task, but the team are doing a good job of setting that up. And it's when we say it kicks you out, we mean it sends you back to the last stability point. It doesn't just dump you on the main menu.
Speaking of incursion, I think it's a useful comparison point, and I'm just curious as to how the memory fragments or the events that spawn in maps, whatever the terminology you're using for that is, compare in terms of necessary clear speed to incursion. Obviously, we've had some power creep in the game since that league, but if you could draw up a comparison.
I suspect that the versions of it that I have played are not final enough to be able to tell you exactly how it's going to feel compared to released incursion, but it certainly does. Like, it's designed so that a regular player who's far, far less skilled than most people watching this podcast are still able to collect the pieces with 2 connections on them, right? So they're not particularly hard. But as when you get 3 or 4, you have to cover a lot more ground in a roughly similar amount of time before the decay gets you. And so for those ones, which really give you a lot of versatility on the memory map, those are the ones that are going to start to require some either clear speed or just getting past the monster's speed. But then you've got the trade-off of the more monsters you kill, the more fractured items you're going to find. And you do need to find quite a lot of those, because it takes 3 of the same class of item to synthesize, and you're going to want to synthesize a lot of stuff, and so on and so on.
So then, is the mentality kind of like Delve when it comes to the really long pieces? If you got a 10-piece chain, is it actually supposed to kill you, or is it still supposed to be somewhat manageable for the average player?
Well, when you're playing a 10-piece chain, there are 2 things in play. The first one is it's long, which means you have to, have a bunch of time available to play through it. These things are about 40% of the size of a map each or something, so 10 pieces means it's roughly 4 maps with the duration. So there's that. In addition, there's potential global mods that you've got on there, right? So the global mods, they're certainly rewarding, and I don't think currently they do make it substantially harder. I'll have to check. I'm pretty sure the global mods are just beneficial at this stage. May vary, though. Okay. But the important thing to note is that you are trying to chain this towards some reward island that's sitting off, reward memory that's sitting off in the distance. And in order to do this, most of the pieces you've placed have a number of charges that's greater than 1. So if you fail and horribly botch it up, you can come back and there's just lower fragment counts available. And you'll probably find that due to the fact you've worked on the structure for a number of iterations, that some of the counts are hitting 0 and vanishing before others. So you kind of have to do repairs on your thing. If you get a few failures in there, or if you get unlucky with the number of charges they have, then you have to kind of repair it by putting pieces in that are functionally equivalent.
Damn, that's really cool. I like that a lot.
Nice.
I like the idea of repeatable leagues, and I'm personally I personally believe that I think there's a lot of scope for simple leagues as well. Like, we've been doing some very conceptually complicated leagues over the last few years, and I'm trying very hard to make sure that they're easy to explain to people. It's less daunting and that kind of stuff, while still making sure we have deep mechanics available. Like, for example, I love the fact that most of you guys here latched onto the fact that there's cool crafting stuff going on here, because that's very hard for the new players to understand. We have to say story stuff for the new players, look at the synthesis mechanics, it's fun to play, and then hope that the community notices there's some nuts crafting stuff going on in the background. Because if we put that as the forefront of our marketing material, it just turns people off.
Has there been any clarification on how blessed orbs work with all of this stuff when it comes to the implicits?
Huh.
We try very hard to make sure the Path of Exile mechanics do work together, so yes, I believe they will re-roll those implicits and let you change the values on them.
Oh, nice.